Welcome, Lior Degani. Really pleased to have you on our RevAmp podcast show. For anybody that doesn't know you already, please just tell us who you are, where you're working for, your role, and a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thanks, Gideon, for having me. It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to speak a little bit about operations, right? We spoke before about this growing field, and really have an opportunity to speak about it. It's super exciting. So about me, I'm based in Tel Aviv. My somewhat short experience. I did some work as a college student in telecom industries, infrastructure, work in that industry. But shortly after, I actually founded a startup, analyzing content on social media, really what people are engaging with. Mainly for small, medium businesses, right? We are trying to gain traction of followers around social media, so we built a technology for that, and we had some like self-serve SMB business. We were acquired by Similarweb in 2015,
Right.
Which was always a fun experience, both the acquisition and entrepreneurship on its own. And since then, I'm in Similarweb. So Similarweb.
5 years, more or less now?
It's 5 years, I think next month. It's 5 years.
Congrats.
So, yeah. It's exciting, actually. 5 years is a very interesting milestone. The company always celebrates people reaching 5 years, and I'm looking forward to be there as well. Similarweb, just to show you a little bit about the company, is basically analyzing the digital world. We collect data, and we basically build the tools in order for different professionals, and I'll share a few examples in a second, to understand everything that's going on in the digital world in terms of website, apps, etc.
Great.
So people are using the platform really all the way from understanding market share and trends in industry and how much traffic sites are getting, all the way to understanding marketing and tactics and performance marketing numbers, where people are getting traffic from, SEO, PPC, display, etc. So all the marketing strategies are in the platform. And then there are more use cases around that. You can find like stuff that people are purchasing in websites, understanding, finding leads that you want to reach out to in terms of like sales use cases, or really like a lot of use cases that the data provides, and the tool supports that. And so this is about the company. I am VP of Business Operations. Okay. Just to share a little bit, one more minute. But my journey in the company was actually a little bit before that. Was more about product strategy at the time. The company was obviously much smaller. It was product marketing, a little bit different than what it is today. But the idea was to really asking questions about the company that we needed to answer, right? About our customers, about our audiences, the market, pricing and packaging, competitors, all those things that you really need to understand when you always need to know it, but it's very critical at those stages. And that basically, and this was like my first year in the role, which eventually evolved to do a lot of those research type activities or projects into go-to-market questions, not necessarily product marketing questions, not to feed a product roadmap, but actually asking questions about why customers are using the platform, why they're not renewing our contracts, which customers are better fit, etc. Like really trying to understand that. Shifted my role in the company to be under like go-to-market function, and I basically did the initial operations around that as of 2019, and then did several roles in that area. But as of since 2019, I'm running the business operations team, and I'll just share like a sentence, obviously, about the team. There are three main functions in the team.
Okay.
One is what we call it internally growth, exactly like top of funnel and marketing, you have growth, but for revenue, how do we optimize our full funnel performance, pipeline and win rates and retention and upsells? So we have like a growth team. It's somewhat of an analyst type of role, really understanding the data and processes around that. And more, the second function is traditional sales operations, day-to-day workflows of go-to-market support, supporting quote-to-cash processes, CRM administration, and stuff like that. And the third piece will be go-to-market enablement, which is something that we are investing heavily in right now.
What does that?
And obviously
What does that?
maximizing.
What does that mean
So
for somebody who doesn't know?
So yeah, so go-to-market enablement, put simply, training, enabling reps to have, again, put simply, all the tools, all the knowledge, all the toolkit in order to succeed in the role, whatever that role may be.
Okay.
Efficiency of go-to-market, so to obviously maximizing the yield from every single rep, and being able to scale the organization. Whatever number of reps we have today, we want to be much bigger in a year, and 2 years, and 3 years from now. Right. Onboarding new reps, right? Training them on new offering, et cetera, et cetera. So making this sales machine scalable and efficient. That will be the main KPIs. So these are the areas of the team. Yeah, that's it.
So fantastic intro. So the question that I have for you now is, say for example, from the beginning of 2020, what is the major project that you're tackling and leading right now? I'm sure there's many additional projects, but what's the central project that you have your eye on and your hands involved in?
Yeah, so there are many, and I don't want to dismiss others, but because all are important and all are making an impact.
Right.
The interesting evolution that we went through in the last 3 years, since I'm in the role, is we're focusing on our new business sales. I mean, we also have obviously operations for post-sales a lot, but if focusing on new business sales specifically, the initial work was around getting leads faster, and getting better leads, qualification of leads, and reaching leads. So we did a lot of work, infrastructure work there, which was there's a lot of things to do there, and we built out like lead routing mechanism, etc. Ever since then, our demand generation team, did an amazing work in actually scaling that lots of into automation. Where it got us to a point where today where our top of funnel machine works very, very well, and our salespeople are getting great sales meetings, leads, etc. A lot and very qualified one. That basically leads us to this more or less where we are today.
Okay.
When we are trying to optimize for that motion specifically. Mainly our inbound flow, not necessarily, but mainly our inbound flow. How can we increase number of logos acquisition, right? So obviously we optimize for revenue, every company is, and this is the number one KPI. But in addition to that, we started really looking this year into how we can make sure that we sell more. I don't want to call it velocity sales because not necessarily about the pace, not necessarily, it's part of it, but really making sure that we sell more and more deals because eventually it's SaaS business, and and the business model is land and expand and net retention. So we don't optimize necessarily for faster sale, not necessarily. We want to make sure that sale is quality. We don't necessarily optimizing for the size of the deal because we believe that product we can scale over time. But we actually optimizing now this, and this is maybe this like 2020 focus, maybe if you want to call it, is like our logo acquisition in addition to revenue, and how we can make sure that we land just more logos per rep or per team or overall in the go-to-market.
So I got to ask you a question because this is really interesting. It would seem that velocity sales would equal more logos, but what you're implying here in the kind of subtle implicit gap between the two is that selling more intelligently or qualitatively might result in a different or better outcome than just selling quickly. Is that what you're saying, or are you saying something different than that? I want to better understand.
It's true. It's a combination. We believe that velocity or selling fast is part of selling more or increasing logos, and I'll maybe share a little bit later about the KPIs that we're looking at for that motion. But it's not necessarily that a deal that was closed in 5 days is a better deal that closed in 15 days. Actually, sometimes we do need to do better discovery and understand. So we really want to land the perfect client, for both sides, of course, the client and us. So I would say that it's balanced between, there is some time frame that we still call it a fast velocity sale, but it's not necessarily that we're trying to make it a shorter. So I guess whatever complements that is how many deals one person can manage at a given time, and then it's like balancing it.
Okay, so with brand acquisition, what have you done differently this year than you did before? Because you already had a well-established sales motion. I know that
Yep.
from several years. So what were the major kind of changes or landmarks? Was it about technologies, processes, education,
Um,
stakeholders? What was your starting point, and what were the building blocks that you put in place?
so to be honest, we do several projects at a given time, and we did many in the past, and of course we'll have many in the future. They are most come down to similar process and how we launch them.
Mm-hmm.
In our revenue growth side of things, we obviously start with the data,
Mm-hmm.
some basic or more complex data analysis based on our when possible, and working with the go-to-market team specifically to understand what will help build the motion. We will usually try to find a KPI, a granular KPI,
Mm-hmm.
or a couple of KPIs. I'm not really optimizing for the end result, the outcome, which is more logos per rep. That's goal. Operationally, we will build 1, 2, or 3 KPIs that are the drivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing we looked at is the behavior of a rep's pipeline from 3 angles. We didn't know what we're gonna find, but what we started obviously building there. The first angle was, let me just put it in a high level. I want to make sure that the pipeline is clean and there is focus for the rep and the best possible. Assuming all leads are qualified, and obviously, and assuming the pipeline is a good pipeline. Of course, that's not always the case, but that's given for the sake of that task. How do I make sure that I'm maximizing the real ops that are about to close and not spending time on ops that are? There are 3 KPIs that we looked at, and we saw the data, how the deals plateau or whatever. So for one of them was the age of the pipeline, or age of the deal, which is, again, like speaking of acceleration, not necessarily I'm trying to make it shorter, but I definitely am trying to make sure that we don't have old pipeline in some of our businesses, because in the data you see like this plateau. Deals are starting to, the win rates for older deals is almost non-existent.
Right.
Very low. And of course there are deals that take time. There are deals closing, but if you want to make sure that the pipeline is still closing in this way that you are targeting by and optimizing for, so we found this mark of where this win rate drops, and the first KPI was like making sure that every single deal in your pipeline, or the majority of deals in your pipeline, are below that threshold of age.
Right.
Yeah. The second thing is more maybe about just like capabilities, or like, because we're all human beings, which is the volume of the pipeline, volume in logos, how many deals you're working at a given moment. Again, at this point, like you.
And was there a split then, of course, in the volume between SMB reps versus enterprise, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the most part, I mean, this optimization of logos is across the board as a company. But for the most part, when I'm talking about age and volume, the initial project or the kickoff was with SMB, because the volumes there are bigger, the velocity there is faster, and you can actually iterate and really work to make a difference. But volume of pipeline is important, right? Again, if you look at specific reps having a huge pipeline or even too low of a pipeline, it's pretty straightforward. The win rates will drop, and they won't be able to nurture those opportunities because of time permits. So in this case, anyways, you're gonna basically some like neglect maybe opportunities. So at one way or another, we want to make sure that we have like a very focused pipeline, like I said, young pipeline, if I want to call it, and then those accounts work with. So this is the second KPI. The third KPI is actually something that we are now starting to build. and it's very relevant for actually enterprise, maybe more than SMB, mainly
Okay.
because of the length and the size of the opportunities. And it's like pipeline health, like the deals themselves, in addition to the KPIs I mentioned before, other activities of pipeline behavior, opportunities behavior, sorry, that reflects what is the likelihood of an opportunity to A, close, and B, to close in the quarter.
Okay.
Forecasting it. All right?
Do you have an example practically of what that behavior might look like? Is it about frequency of touch points, open rate of emails, calls received? What, in real terms?
So it's three main things. Activities with a prospect, like you said, is one of them. The second one is moving between the opportunity stages.
Okay.
Right. We expect a certain behavior, of course, obviously based on past data. Of course, it's not theoretical, and it's not made up. What we saw working in the past, how opportunity progresses over time. And then, like I said, for example, the age will be a third input. Right. So those three together are more or less the three focus areas, among others, that we're looking at for this year as part of logo acquisition. Right? Again, like I mentioned, I'm not talking about ARR here or dollar value of a deal.
That's completely valid. So we're approximately 6 months in, and the project is definitely not complete. You're still working on kind of step 3 amongst others. Have you been able to see initial kind of positive signs or results impacted by this process? Has there been any kind of green shoots?
So the short answer is yes.
Okay.
And I'm very, very happy to see initial results. And the initial results is the number of that we looked at for Q1, Q1 and Q2. Sorry, now it's still ongoing. Is number of people basically hitting those logo KPIs significantly better than last year. Still not where we want to be, of course. We have a long way to go, but this is the first thing we're looking at. I can tell you that this whole thing, when I'm like speaking with leadership or presenting some of our statistics beyond the revenue, we put everything under an umbrella of win rates. We want to make sure that the pipeline that we are generating, like I said, demand generation, et cetera, we're winning in the proper win rates. Not obviously higher, but higher to a degree. We want to make sure that the win rates are exactly as we planned for, and are the most efficient. So if you combine both the pipeline health and this velocity type of logo growth, it will all be counted under win rates, and we are having so far Q2 looks very, very, very impressive.
Very good.
Yeah.
And then in terms of takeaway learning, as you look back on the last 6 months, you've obviously shared a lot of the upsides. Has there been anything that you have uniquely learned through this process that either you did well and it was unexpected, or if you did it again, you might do it differently? Has there been any kind of standout moments of learning for you?
I'll tell you that it's a very interesting topic to talk about, maybe in a separate session. Ability to launch projects. Be it if that's the best idea in the world or not, driving adoption, utilization, and if it's a tool or whatever, and actually impacting the main objective of the product is a challenge. And I think the challenge for all operations teams. What my genius director of revenue growth did was basically wrapping it up into and including it into other processes that we already have. So we launched a product called, for example, 30 under 50. How many ops you should have with what under what age. Like the name of the project sounds some a little bit of branding, and we included them into our like final performance that we're doing with the teams anyways. So we're doing them to measure conversions, of course, and make sure that we are covered and we have enough deals. We have enough leads, meetings, and deals are moving down the pipeline. But then basically you're doing like an ongoing, as part of this cadence maybe, or in addition to this cadence, better put, you're also looking at the quality of the pipeline, and you're flagging whatever challenges you see, and where the point is to try to show with the flashlight where to put the focus on the day-to-day. This is why it's operations and it's not whatever analysts type of
Mm-hmm,
right. You need to be on every single op, every single rep. I'll just add to that personally. There are maybe three things that are critical again in all projects. I don't think it's relevant for that project only. If I think about just increasing success rates of projects and stuff.
Okay.
The first one will be the mistake that we used to do in the past, I'm talking about myself, is to look at improvements and trends. Whether we generated X dollar of pipeline last month, if this month we did 2X, that's amazing. We celebrated and we are looking better. That's unfortunately not the right approach, in my opinion. You always need to look compared to targets. Point is, what sounds pretty trivial, and again, it wasn't trivial for us, that every single step in the funnel and every KPI that you are trying to optimize must have a target. Mm-hmm. And then everything that you report on and you measure is against our targets, not necessarily against what it used to be a year ago, a quarter ago. Mm-hmm. You're really highlighting challenges and opportunities when you're looking at attainment of versus target, as opposed to we grew 50% on whatever KPI. Mm-hmm. The second one that was also, again, a mistake, and we're doing much better today, is be very granular. You cannot look at a KPI, call it number of ops per rep, or pipeline generation, or whatever KPI that operations are optimizing for. You cannot look at it globally. You cannot say that this is what we did as a company. Mm-hmm. It's never telling the right story. Usually, some teams are doing better than others, and the difference between them doesn't cover for one another. So the global number doesn't add up, if that makes sense. So I'm really recommending, and we're really trying to follow that rule as well, to be very granular, be it business unit, like you mentioned before, SMB and enterprise. They have different measures, and I need to look at them separately. I cannot look at them as one unit, or maybe it's different markets that we're working, like in the US or Europe, etc. So we're really trying to optimize for every single, as granular as we can. Obviously, there is a limit. And that will be the second point. The third and last point that I think very relevant to your questions before about
Lior.
Yep.
1 second. I'm going to pause for 1 second. I'm just going to plug in my charger, and we are recording again now.
So to point three, which is maybe the most relevant answer to your initial question from a few minutes ago about like tips for better traction and better adoption, would be to really work closely with the go-to-market eventually, which are our customers, and it's not a cliche. We use our call it directors, managers, frontline managers as our extensions. They need to obviously see the value and get value from that. And they are eventually in the field and working. They know much better about the opportunities, about the reps, much better than the operations team. And they are the extension maybe to our project. So eventually it's all going through how well you position the project, how you brand it, and obviously train and enable the people in the field.
Okay. Fantastic. Lior, it's been an absolute pleasure to learn from you and with you. Everybody will be enriched from this, and I'll make sure that underneath your podcast, we have your LinkedIn profile. So if anybody wants to follow you there on LinkedIn and look out for any future content that you share, they can be sure to do that. Lior, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate you here.
Thank you, Gideon. It was really fun. Short, but fun.